Hey guys, today we're gonna change the brake pads on my Audi TT Mk2. For this job, what you need is breaker bar, torque wrench, some wrench and an extender comes handy. Then we need a 17 sockets to take off the wheels. We need 24 sockets for the carrier. We need Torx 45 for pin guides. We need Torx 30 to take off the brake rotor. Some screwdriver comes handy to remove the safety. Then we need some silicone grease, some copper grease and thread lock. We need brake clean and some sandpaper, gloves, some old rags to clean stuff. Of course we need new brake pads, and this also comes handy. When you remove the wheel, this is what you end up. So you have a brake rotor, brake caliper, they're here behind are brake pads, another brake pad. What you want actually is to remove this and this slide pin, which is actually behind this plastic cap. So you just remove this plastic cap here and another plastic cap here. You can also unscrew this M14, I believe, this one, and then that one here underneath, and then you will also remove the carrier. To help yourself out, you can also put ignition, turn your wheel to the side. You're gonna do the brake job. Okay, turn off ignition, take the key out, and now the wheel is easier to access. Take your Torx 45 and just unscrew the slider pin. Both slider pins are now loosened and the brake still doesn't fall off, and this is a good thing because we have this security wire or whatever this is where we need to remove. Just pop this thing out, up, but do it nicely. So stick it in, pop it out, perfect. You want to also disconnect the cable, so just stick some small screwdriver in here and turn it around, so that this little thing pops out, and then you can disconnect it. Now the whole brake is moving and you could wibble it down. Just make sure that the slider pins are out, and just wibble it and you will get it out. You put the brake caliper away. Don't let it hanging on this brake fluid line here. Just put it on some strings and for example put it here, and then you can just take out the brake pads. We can also unscrew those two screws as I told you and remove the carrier holder if we also want to remove the brake rotor. So I already unscrewed it, and this comes off. This is the carrier, and then here we have this little Torx 30. We unscrew it and then the whole rotor just slides off, and that's it. So now we can use brake clean. Just clean everything when you took apart. I will not yet replace the rotor. I will just kind of correct it a bit, because as it wears out slightly it makes a tiny gap here, and this sometimes can make brakes squeak. I like to really clean everything off and then sand the edges on this side and on another side. Take the sandpaper and sand off the edges, and yeah, use gloves because this is nasty. As well, don't forget to sandpaper the inner part where the brake pad can touch it, here this inner part, and here you can see this strange thing happened. That's why once I was heavily driving down the hill, brakes actually burned so much that it was all smoky and shit. So I can see this was the kind of the problem, but I will now repair that and everything will be fine, as the thickness is still okay. We can measure the thickness of the rotor. This is 24 millimeters, which means it's still good. When it goes, I think, below 22 millimeters, then it's already too thin. Here are now the old brake pads from one wheel and the new ones. So you can see the new brakes are a lot thicker than the old ones. Old ones are still not weared totally, but it happens. I have time now to change them, and they are super cheap on Amazon. The link will be in the description. So I just figured, fuck it, I will change it. You also need this copper paste. You want to apply it some at the back and some around piston. Just this kind of prevents rusting and it prevents squeaking. Before assembling everything back, I recommend you also to clean the surfaces here. Sand all the rusty part, then use some brake clean. First the rotor goes back in the place, so just screw it down. Now the brake carrier should come in the place. This is screwed in these two holes, and use some thread lock on these M14s. And put it back in place. And tighten to 120 Newton meters of torque. Good, perfect. Now we want to put the brake pads back in the caliper. So I always like to feel comfortable, so I put some big pile of wood. And when the piston is back in the place, we put some copper grease in here onto the piston. You can see that brake pads sit exactly like that. What we want to do is to put some grease here. So this is the copper paste. The brake pad also sits like that. Despite it has this rubber at the back which prevents squeaking, I also like to put some grease in here, because as you brake, maybe this moves a bit and then you will hear this squeaking noise. Also put some paste in here at the bottom where this pin sits. If this will move just slightly, you will for sure hear some squeaking, despite you have a totally new brake pads. Now, when are the brake parts which are not meant for braking are covered with grease, we can assemble everything back. So this one goes into the piston, so you just push it in like that. Now this one sits here. Now brake pads are assembled, and now the whole brake piston with brake pads can go back onto the rotor. Okay, perfect. This sits well. Now it's a bit wobbly. That's because we pushed back the piston and the piston is not pressing the brake pads. What we need is now to reassemble the guide pins. Use some silicone based grease all over on them and then push them back in the place. It must be silicone based grease because it won't damage the rubber parts. It is suggested by Audi dealership that every time you change brakes or you do brake jobs, you change those slide pins, and with new pins you actually get the silicone grease in the package, at least on Amazon. You should also put some thread lock here on the guide pins. Take in the place and find the spot where it fits into the hole into the brake carrier. Screw them down and torque them to 28 Newton meters of torque. Let's try it one more time. Perfect. We want to reconnect the cable, which slides perfectly in the place here, and we want to return this safety wire. Now finally what you need to do is to give a ignition and then just press the brake a couple of times. You should just do a test drive. First start up slowly, try out if the brake is working, if everything is fine, check all the lights. Of course also then try to do a rapid, so very hard deceleration, so braking, and with this I think the job is done.